Get your hot dogs, get your popcorn, whatever it is you're eating, any chicken, shrimp dinners, anything like that. If you went to churches, if you fried the chicken yourself, if you got some roast or whatever, sit down with a nice meal, a nice drink, and tune in to the Loaded Wednesday night. I am your host, Denzel Snipes, and this is the Pundit's Pundit. And before we get started, I want to remind everybody that if you are watching our show from one of the five platforms we're on, just know that you can find us on all the other ones. So we're on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. Please hit the like and subscribe button, and also share the hell out of this. Like tell your friends. This is some really hot content that we have been bringing and will continue to bring. Especially tune in tonight. A lot of jam-packed material for you. But I first want to bring some people in, and that is first off, he is the architect of this very show, and he hosts Pundit Views, the best one-on-one since 2020 on Monday nights, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Come on in here, Jacob Christner.
Well, it was one-on-ones in 2020 because that's all we had. It's like that's all we had. Nobody else could be together.
I know, right?
But I'll tell you this: if hot dogs and sodas and everything are all they can do to watch this show, we're definitely going to need a new audience.
Well, I mean, I figured we work our way up to like the steak and lobster dinner. At least they're eating something.
Hey, let's get them to Roost Chris.
Yeah, look, it's not ramen noodles and SpaghettiOs, all right?
Yeah, that's the truth. That's the truth.
Yeah, but and then coming in, we also got the Rocky Mountain Rebel himself. His Denver Nuggets are on the brink of the NBA Finals. Come on in here, Jordan Long.
Hey guys, yeah, you're right. I mean, the Nuggets are playing well now. Can we finish off the Suns tomorrow? That'll make me very happy.
Yeah, absolutely, man. What a time for Denver, dude. I know the Avalanche wasn't their year this year. They did win last year and everything. And then you got the Nuggets. If only the Broncos and the Rockies can pick it up, man. Like, what's going on?
The Rockies are the Rockies. They don't spend free agents. At least the Broncos, we have Sean Payton, so there is a little bit of hope.
That is true, absolutely. And last but not least, and this is he is the endorser of Mountain Dew. It drinks more than anyone that I know, and I've been deployed 3 times trying to stay awake at night, But he is the pilot, co-pilot, crew. Hell, he's the whole damn plane of the South Florida Tribune. You can check him out right after this show on the South Florida Tribune on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter. That is the Sports Exchange. It's a loaded show. Jacob's going to be there. JB's going to be there. It's a lot of great material. But let's go and bring him in here. Scott, the Motor City Madmouth Morganroth. Come on in here.
All right. Yes, I got the and there it is, man.
Roth.
I got the Diet Mountain Dew. I got a triple header tonight. Did 2 with JB earlier with the boxer, so I did the handful today. So I'm telling you,
is that your Mountain Dew or your piss test?
No, that's actually my Mountain Dew tonight. And I took an hour and a half nap after I got back, so I'm ready to go for this triple header tonight. And by the way, if you didn't know, I'll be on Confidential tonight one more time, talking about the Marlins and the Cubbies. So,
and the Cubbies, yes, absolutely. And that's going to be.
You'll give me that information so I could shoot the breeze and talk about the little baby bears.
Absolutely.
Come on,
even though this series that just happened, the Marlins were the baby fishes. So it's but it's gonna be great material coming up. That is actually after the Sports Exchange. Come on back over to Sideline Sports for Confidential. Jacob's gonna be there because he's just seemingly everywhere nowadays. And it's gonna be a lot of fun. Say again?
For pants. I'm definitely everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. So wanted to start off tonight with, and I'm sure he's going to endorse this, and this is Prime Pundit Points. We're going to go around the horn, solo screen, and you know what? We're just going to start off with the architect himself. Prime Pundit Points. Go.
All right. Now, everybody take notes. Take notes here because I'm going to do an endorsement of another podcast. It's not on our station. It's not anything. And I'm talking to you, everybody, but especially you, Denzel. Click this, the Kevin Nash podcast. Best podcast out there today. Best one. Okay, for anybody that doesn't watch wrestling, doesn't pay attention, it's 30 to 40% wrestling. So you can just ignore it or you can laugh at the stories. I'm telling you this right now. Take the notes. Click KLIQ. Click this, the Kevin Nash podcast. Reason I'm bringing this up is because it is not just wrestling, like from their career and everything. He talks about art. He talks about music, like front men from bands. He talks about business. He talks about politics. He talks about art. Like I was saying, art. He talks about Kevin Nash and Sean Oliver. They've both been actors. They have a whole episode on their movies that they've been in. 2 episodes actually. They talk about movies. They talk about the theater. They talk about everything. Slice of life stuff. Just different things. You will not believe a 6'10", 300-pound guy has a musclehead has this kind of knowledge, and it's fun. So, and I'm going to say this: it's a promotion. I'm promoting this, and they're not even paying me for it. They better be one day. Click this, KLIQ. Click this, the Kevin Nash podcast. Trust me.
Well, I guess that's me. Well, you know what? Today I got the information that, Mike Krzyzewski, all right, has been named a special advisor to the NBA. You know what? You can bring him in there, try to assist the league all you want to, but until you conquer the words load management, it doesn't matter if who you bring in here at all. The NBA needs more than Mike Krzyzewski. They need to have their players always play all the time. Stars cannot miss, especially on the road. Fans pay a lot of money for these seats. So, Mike, even though you come from the NCAA where your players play 30, 35 times a year, 40, it's a different animal. So, load management, Mike Krzyzewski, you're a great coach, but not a miracle worker.
So in Columbus, Ohio, there was a scary incident that luckily didn't escalate a few weeks ago. There was a brewery hosting a drag brunch fundraiser. Now, that didn't seem like such a big deal, but for another group, it was a big deal. Masked neo-Nazis gathered outside the brewery. The group appeared to belong to the white supremacist neo-Nazi group Blood Tribe. Now, the people actually disagreed with the decision of the drag queens' choice and protested. The worst they were saying was Zing Heil, the leader of the group, basically did a call response saying, "Welcome to the Nazi show," while the group responded with "Pedophiles get the rope." Most of these guys actually wore masks, so you don't know who they were. As for the protesting, this was the wrong thing to do. The drag queens were just people enjoying what they do, wearing drag. They weren't hurting anybody other than having fun. We are just lucky it didn't escalate in violence. These types of protests have to stop.
So I just wanted to take this time right now to give a lot, and I mean a lot, of not props, but well, just overall, like so, Jacob Christner, talked about Nash's Click This podcast and everything, right? I'm gonna go on something else on wrestling, and that is last Saturday in WWE Backlash 2023. That was, and for that not being one of the big 5 pay-per-views, WrestleMania, Royal Rumble, Money in the Bank, SummerSlam, and Survivor Series, this absolutely had a big 5 feel. You could have sworn it was SummerSlam. So it took place in San Juan, Puerto Rico. It was WWE's return to Puerto Rico, return to that island in 18 years. And the entire night was 5-star. It started out with Bianca Belair and Io Sky. The crowd was electric all night long. Put it to you like this. Probably the worst match on the card was the United States title match, but even that gets a solid B. And the main event, of course, with Brock Lesnar and Cody Rhodes, and don't get me wrong, it was a good match. It really was, but it should not have closed the show. Bad Bunny versus Damian Priest should have closed that show. I don't know what they were thinking by not having them go on last. These are 2 Puerto Ricans going at it in Puerto Rico. Bad Bunny easily was the star of the night. For a guy that does reggaeton, He doesn't look bad in the ring, like, at all. And he's wrestled at a WrestleMania. So shout out to, anyone on the island that attended that event. Shout out to that crowd. It was great, man. I wish I was there. It would have been amazing. But WWE Backlash 2023, it's in my top 5 backlashes of all time. Well, top 3, really, alongside the first Backlash in 99. That was Austin Rock 2 and Triple H Batista 2 at 2005. But great. And you know what? And myself and Jacob have talked about this. It's all a part of Triple H's vision. So here's some more to come from Triple H's vision of the Triple H era. And here's to the old man staying at home. Now, let's get the crew back in here. We got Jacob.
Did you hear mine?
Coming on back in here. Shout out to him for the.
Did you hear mine?
Point. What was that?
Did you hear my pundit point?
Yes.
I wanted to make sure, did everybody, because I had to get off and on because I couldn't hear theirs.
Yeah. We heard it. All right.
Okay, cool.
All right, let's get Scotty back in here. Beam me up, Scotty, or should I say I'm beaming him up right now. Motor City Madmouth himself. He's got his Mountain Dew. He's ready to go. And then let's get the Rocky Mountain rock star back in here, Mr. Jordan Long. Everyone had awesome prime pundit points, and we are ready to get on with the rest of the telecast. So our first topic, and probably a little bit on a semi-dark note here. And to those of you who keep up with horse racing, these are 4 horses that died on the eve of all days. And it's bad enough that, like 4 horses died, right? But I mean, like right before the Kentucky Derby, which is, you hear me mention WrestleMania, right? WrestleMania, the Super Bowl, like all the biggest events. This is that, but with horse racing and everything. And then, well, Jacob brought it in and just kind of lead us into this one and what's going on.
Jordan brought it.
I brought it.
Oh, Jordan did? Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Jordan, this is you. Go ahead, man. Lead us off.
So basically what Denzel was talking about, it actually ended up being 7 horses died at Churchill Downs. And as we know, that's the home of the Kentucky Derby. 4 were before the actual horse race. Now, 4 of the 7 horses were euthanized after sustaining injuries. Now, I don't know if that was during the race, during training, I don't know. But we all know that horse racing is a popular sport. We have heard this before where there have been horses that have died in the Kentucky Derby, or at Churchill Downs, but it's not before the Kentucky Derby. Luckily, none of these horses were actually in the actual Kentucky Derby itself. My question, though, is how in the world is this happening? Is it the training? Is it the fact that we know they put steroids in these horses so they can actually run faster? But how in the world does this happen, especially at Churchill Downs, where it's a popular venue where you're going to have the Kentucky Derby? It just doesn't make sense for this to happen.
No, absolutely not. It's one of those things where, you do a shortcut long enough, because let's face it, no matter what it is, it's a shortcut. You do a shortcut long enough, it's going to catch up to you. The things that people will do to make money. I get it. People need money to live, but not at the expense of, of these horses. They're already like treated like machines, and it is what it is, when it comes to horse racing. But you see what a shortcut got you. You're 7, what you said 7, it's really 7, right?
Yeah.
You're 7 horses short for the event. Like that's unheard of. But I want to swing it to Jacob here and give us your thoughts on this whole thing.
2 others died after the Derby too. They had to put down. And the biggest thing about this is the wrong era to have this. It's like, and one of the people that was the start of all this, and they gave him suspension, was Bob Baffert, one of the trainers.
That's for sure.
He was one of them, and they suspended him 2 years ago. But here's the thing about this: with humans, there is a, I forget, amblyopathy, something like that. And it's basically where you overtrain and your muscles break down. Amblyopathy or something. It's like if someone can put it on a chat or something like that, which one it is. But anyway, this happened to a couple of tennis players. You overtrain and your muscles break down completely. So then it's like a disease. I'm wondering how many of those horses have their version of that.
That is a very good question.
How many have that and they're overtraining and then they're breaking down? And then, but see, this is the wrong era, because look at this now. The Barnum and Bailey Circus shut down for 4 years, and now they're back with no animals. How long, unless they come up with something, how long before they try to, the eras, it doesn't matter if it's Democrat, Republican, it doesn't matter what era, how long before you guys remember it was Trump's era that got lost the Barnum and Bailey circus.
Yep.
It was Trump's era that got that, and he's supposed to be the Republican. So it's not like that this Republican's going to keep the animals around and the Democrat. No, it could easily be either of them. And how long before any of them, that they just banned the horse racing altogether?
I think
because of protection of thing. I mean, how long before PETA gets? Because PETA's nuts, but
Yeah, you're only feeding them ammunition at this point.
Yeah, well, exactly. I was just going to say the same thing. It is just a matter of time before horse racing is banned. Then you have to look at dog racing. When will that get banned? I mean, it could go down the line.
Dog racing, you already know they still, they still vilify Mike Vick to this day.
Mm-hmm.
So anything having to do with dogs in that nature, like even racing, they're gonna be like, no. And like I said before, that's only feeding PETA has already lost their minds. And the crazy part about it is they actually would be right this time. But I want to swing it over to Scott and give your thoughts about this whole thing, if you will.
Sure. Well, number one, here in Hollywood, Florida, I believe that dog racing is about to be banned anyway. So that's justified. And that's one of the bigger greyhound tracks in the area here in South Florida. We're talking about the Kentucky Derby and all these horses that are dying. But must we forget that Santa Anita, is where a lot of these tragedies are starting to pile up. And now it's starting to get more publicity because it hits Churchill Downs. What about all those horses that unfortunately lost their lives in California, but yet we're talking about it now on the eve of the Kentucky Derby and so forth? So, to me, when you sense certain signs, of things happen, and then it takes a race of this magnitude to bring it to your attention, really? Yeah, and you guys are right. I mean, horses being treated like machines, and that's a shame, because I remember probably before you guys ever paid attention to it, but I remember when Ruffian lost her life over at Churchill Downs. I think it was Foolish Pleasure who she went up against with a broken leg. Now, obviously, that was unfortunate, and I remember that real well because, you had the best female horse against male, and so unfortunately she lost her life. But to me, we got to look back at the history of horses dying before we get to Churchill Downs. That's what we have to do.
True.
That is a very good point.
I think the freak that was Secretariat hurt other horses from the future of the horse racing, because the Secretariat was a freak. There was no question about that, and the way that Secretariat won races, everybody to this day from that point on they're trying to chemically create another Secretariat. And that's overdoing the horses. That's overworking them. And it's like, there isn't another Secretariat.
But perhaps that is the case, and I agree with you. But nevertheless, I still look at this whole thing as a debacle because it took Churchill Downs to finally identify horses dying. We have to look at the events that led up to Churchill Downs, not hit the climactic point here where it's Churchill Downs. But what about all these other tragedies that occurred way before this? That's where I'm with this whole thing.
Sure. Scott, you're on to something, man, because with enough investigating, enough time, like even later on this year, this time next year, like this could be a full-blown scandal where folks get fined, folks might go to prison, and another point that I wanted to harp on is, and Jacob, you've heard me rant about this, Scott, you too, Jordan, is we live in a reactive society. It had to take horses dying for heads to start turning,
Well, here, it had to take horses dying at Churchill Downs for people to start talking. Don't forget those. Another thing I should point out, too, is you talk about what you said. You're right. Let's take this to the gridiron for a moment, all right? Number one, it wasn't until they had that big lawsuit with these players and their medical care to realize that head injuries are something to be taken seriously. What about all these other guys and I know a few former players that collected settlements off of those injuries, and now we're starting to take precautions against concussions. And back then, nobody paid attention to them. If you weren't on the field, you were going to lose their job. So again, Denzel, back to your point, reactionary, yes. Horses, NFL, whatever, same thing. but it doesn't stop the pain and the long-term influence that is taking place as a result of all of this.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm gonna go on to our next topic here, and that is, this one right here, because I have another incident to add to this. And this is the Sir Antonio Brown shooting, Jordan Neely, and the media pushing narratives. Now, to those of y'all who don't know about the Sir Antonio Brown incident, I'm going to introduce this topic. Swing it over to Jacob. But he was shot to death while playing in his front yard in Kansas, and they haven't caught anyone just yet. But there was 30 shell casings that was found around him, so something happened. I don't know if it was like a shootout between two other entities and he was an innocent bystander or what was going on. To me, right now, it makes the most sense because there's no way that you can hate somebody, a 6-year-old, to where you'll shoot at him 30 times. But also, there's the Jordan Neely incident. And those of y'all who don't know what happened with that one, there was a homeless man on a New York subway, and he was wanting food and shelter. It was reported that he was not hostile, but I guess kind of, not aggressive or anything like that, but he was just kind of demanding, And former Marine Jordan Neely went up to him, put him in a chokehold, and left him there too long, and the man ended up dying from it. And then I have another incident to add, and that is the recent mass shooting in Texas, in Allen, Texas, that claimed the lives of 9 people, and here's the deal here, okay? Because I can recall when Columbine happened, and Jordan, you're out in Colorado. I know you know what I'm talking about. I recall when Columbine happened, and I'm sure Scott remembers the Texas sniper at University of Texas and everything, And it's like when things like this happen, it was so few and far in between, and now it's literally become as common as going to the corner store, and it's just crazy. And then as far as pushing the narrative out there, well, considering that the Allen, Texas shooter, he had neo-Nazi ideologies. They already ran a background check. He had some patch on. It was it's like right-wing blood seekers or something like that. But he was a neo-Nazi. He was a right-wing extremist. Jordan Neely and Sir Antonio Brown. Now, I'm curious to know where Jacob's coming from as far as the media pushing a narrative about that. So I'm going to swing it on to him and let him give his commentary. Go ahead.
We're pushing it is simple. I had to write in all of Sir Antonio, and it's Sir with an apostrophe. That's fine. I had to write his whole, including the apostrophe, his whole name in the Google to get anywhere. I got 5 stories, all local. I normally, if you got something that has a trending, you put this name Sir, and it's all over.
Right.
You have the. I had to write his whole name. I still have to write his whole name. A 6-year-old boy. A 6-year-old boy, and there's no coverage other than local. And guess what? They've even tried getting the family has tried getting his the family has tried getting his a GoFundMe to get his funeral done. His funeral expenses, like $20,000 or something. And it's like they might have gotten it by that point. I don't know. They were short still. That would have been one day if it was any kind of deal whatsoever. It's a 6-year-old boy. Where is the coverage? Why are you covering it up? As far as the Jordan Neely deal, there was other. I'm just saying this, Denzel. There was other video. He was demanding. He was hostile. There was, and see what happened was, regardless of if he was that hostile or that demanding, regardless of the thing, a lot of people had been feared because there have been people acting worse than Jordan Neely has.
Right.
There was people on there that acted worse. There had been people going up, and there had been homeless people going up to white families and just yelling, and the dad won't say anything because he doesn't want to get his kids hurt. I've seen those videos. Then they acted worse than Jordan Neely was. They acted worse than some, and it's like there was you remember years ago. I'm trying to say, I'm sorry. All those years ago, Scott. You remember Bernard? What was his last name from New York? Bernard Carrick,
Yeah,
You know, he was the one in New York. He was a vigilante.
I'm drawing a blank.
Anyway, he was a vigilante after all the years. He was named based off of the Death Wish. His story was based off Death Wish, and it was based. I believe it was. Maybe it was a little, but it was basically or that came earlier. It's basically the idea that people just lost control and people got tired of being harassed. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
They got tired of being harassed, and that is what happened. But I'm talking about a little. Why are you ignoring that? And then there's another one, a Chicago cop. A Chicago cop. She was 24 years old. She was 5 feet from her door, and she got shot completely dead off duty.
Yes, I heard about that.
She got shot off duty. I had to put her name. I forgot now, but I had to put her name totally in. I had to put her name totally in. These are, guess what? Sir Antonio Brown's black. The girl is black. This isn't a white-black situation. Everybody, we're talking about black here. We're talking a narrative of who do you want to blame in the situation? There's no arrest, no anything. Who do you want to blame? Do you want a story, or do you want to get news out there? And why is a 6-year-old getting shot in his front yard not news?
Exactly.
30 shells around him. Why is a Chicago cop not news? I mean, this isn't like this is like a white cop or anything. This is a black cop in basically a second year. Why is that not news? That's where I'm going with this. The pushing the narrative. They went for, and then Allen, Texas. You're correct. You're correct. How in the world? Here's my question: Where did a Mexican national get right-wing views? That's my question.
Yeah,
you know, I mean,
that's baffling.
It was a Mexican national. I mean, where did he get those views? Is my question. But why isn't all four? There's enough news in this world. There's enough. It's 24-hour news. Why aren't all four?
That's nuts that you mentioned that about the Chicago cop, because you know Chicago's been like a murder capital for some years now. Chicago murder happens, gets reported. Chicago cop murder happens, nothing.
And that's the only thing I'm saying. This isn't white. This isn't a white and black thing. All four people we're talking. I mean, you have a one Mexican and 3 black people. This isn't a white and black thing. It's like it just shows it doesn't matter. There are people on Twitter that'll think, oh, you're good. They will say things like, oh, you'll hide the ones from the white you killed, but not the black. No, they're hiding black ones, and now a 6-year-old. Right. They'll hide those if there's a narrative. It doesn't matter. It's like they want a blame. They want a story. If they're trying to, was it a gang thing that killed a 6-year-old? They're trying to hide that. Are they trying to hide a gang? Are they trying to hide? Did a gang try to kill a cop? Are they trying to hide that just to try to put a blame and start chaos? That's what I'm saying, Denzel.
Right, absolutely. That I mean, you know, and I know you mentioned because you know this actually reminds me of an incident back in 2002. Let me see if I got the right name here. Okay, then this is 2005. Okay, so you remember Natalie Holloway that came up missing, right, in Aruba?
Yep.
Oh yeah, yep.
Absolutely no one talked about LaToya Figueroa from Philadelphia, who was a missing half black, half Hispanic woman who was killed by the who was killed by the father of her child. They found her and the kid dead because she was pregnant. You know, got little or no coverage. So it is a narrative being pushed out there. But I want to swing it over to Jordan, and if you can give your thoughts about this whole thing.
I think it's absolutely ridiculous that, you know, like Jacob was saying with Sir Antonio Brown, I didn't even know about the story until he said something. The thing is the problem with America is they look for the bigger story. Don't get me wrong, a 6-year-old getting killed is a big story, but they're looking for the more mass shootings. That's why we didn't hear a lot about it, which is absolutely ridiculous. The other problem with America is, and I'm not blaming any politicians, I'm not going that route. The problem is there's so many mass shootings every single day that we have become numb to it. And it's just sad that, you know, there'll be mass shooting in, you know, Waco, Texas. Oh, okay. What are we going to do about it? Oh, nothing. There was the one in Colorado just a couple of years ago with the NCAA, when the Buffs were in the NCAA tournament, that happened at a city market. Well, we heard about it, but that was about it. It's just, some of these stories are just big about mass shootings, and they don't really care about the smaller stores. And I do agree with Jacob that Sir Antonio Brown should have been in the story more, especially around the news, because of the fact that it's a 6-year-old. There's no way a 6-year-old should have been shot and killed. I do agree with Jacob that maybe it was a gang shootout. We don't know. I would like more information, but will we ever get it? Who knows? I just hope that Sir Antonio Brown's memory isn't going to go away just because we can't find him. I hope there's going to be a bigger story to this.
Exactly. We definitely need a follow-up to this. I mean, like, kids shot to death in this front, and it just, narrative with the narrative, but it just gets kind of worse. It's like, well, 30 shell cases were found, and it's like, oh man, it could have been anything, that happened, but we just know a kid's dead, and we're barely knowing about it. You know what I mean? But last thing I wanted to round this out with Scott, if you give your whole take about this whole thing.
Yeah, let me talk about a couple of things. Talk about mass shootings. I had to deal with one in my backyard over at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. Boy, did that one get a lot of publicity. I would drive by that school all the time, and it was too surreal. In fact, I remember where I was at the time when all that stuff started to take place. I was at a local Kentucky Fried Chicken about a few miles away from where it happened. It was surreal. God. I mean, and the thing about Parkland is it's a predominantly white community, very wealthy community, and it's undoubtedly one of the safest areas in the state. But because you have one bad egg, all of a sudden Parkland is being depicted like it's a real bad place, and it's not. Parkland's one of the best cities. I'm there every day. I mean, practically, because it's only miles away. And again, Jordan's right. Okay, we can go out there and publicize these mass shootings an awful lot, and they're going to get the publicity. Unfortunately, it's become the new normal. We hear a new one every day. Now, think about this for a moment. When you look at the name Sir Antonio Brown, when I looked at it, I'm wondering if we're talking about the insane Pittsburgh Steelers, Sir Antonio Brown, anyways. Exactly. So Sir Antonio Brown, what is this knucklehead in trouble again? Little do we know that Sir Antonio Brown is 6 years old, right? Do I have the right amount of fingers in the thumb? Yeah. Okay. All right. So Sir Antonio Brown, and nobody's paying attention to him. But if they had said it happened to Antonio Brown, we'd probably all be laughing about it because he deserved it in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So the unfortunate reality of the whole thing is, a lot of the other smaller crimes are going to be buried in the lead, as they call it in journalism, right, Jordan? You know how it is, buried in the lead.
Yep.
And there's just no way you're ever going to get around it because nowadays, sensationalism, bigger stories sell. These situations like Sir Antonio Brown ain't going to sell you anything. Although, despite the fact that you have a internet and everything gets out in second, some stories just get buried. No pun intended either at all, just so you know, because of the lack of high-profile nature for which they are. It's a shame that we have to continue to hear about this all the time. And the reality is while we talk about places like Russia and all the communism and all the violence around the world, we have as much in our community in a democracy.
Bro.
And that is unbelievable. We depict America as a very safe area, but yet all we do is look at what's on the streets. You want to shed a little bit of light to Chicago? Well, we don't help the city's reputation by having a show called Chicago PD as a crime show either, which probably shows a lot of areas. I don't know where it's filmed, whether it's the south side, north side, or whatever, where it supposedly is. But Chicago's reputation for being a very unsafe place goes without saying. And yet they're taxing people all day long, one of the most taxed states in the country. And we're still finding out that they're not doing anything to take care of the safety of its citizens. So that stinks. I mean, nothing against Chicago PD. I do watch it with my other half. We do more around here than watch sports. And, we give her the crime shows. But I'm not trying to laugh at something that's severe. I just find that some of the things that we choose to talk about and to get publicized are ridiculous. Jordan will tell you right now, remember last night with KR Lombardia? And what is the one thing he told you about local coverage in the Tampa area for high school sports and college?
It's non-existent.
Right. And you know what? What's amazing about our show last night was you think of all the people in the past when I worked at my old paper, the Tampa Tribune, Jay Gruden, Tony La Russa, Wade Boggs. Tampa has produced a lot of great major league players, but now the local media doesn't do anything about it to promote high schools back in the day when I did. So the Sir Antonio Brown thing, I feel bad about the whole thing. Unfortunately, it seems like nowadays we feel bad about everything, right? Because if it isn't one thing, it'll be something tomorrow. It's just we can't go ahead and shake the narrative on it.
Well, and I'll tell you, well, here's where my issue goes. It's the fact that news has gotten so bad that there is a big hype over Tucker Carlson going to Twitter. That they didn't care. They didn't even care he got fired from Fox because he's probably going to get a monstrous deal on the Twitter alone.
Right.
And it's and it's just regardless of what anybody wants to think of something like that, that's where news has gone. It's the fact that and the thing is that I'm no fan of Tucker Carlson. There's ones like that. And it's like, I'm no fan of Tucker Carlson. And there's a lot of conservatives I'm not. And in fact, during the whole Sir Antonio Brown thing, you guys all saw me on Twitter. I didn't just go with the liberals on this type of thing. There's all these conservative people on this that have their own radio shows. They have their own little thing. They have their own feeds. All the conservatives were doing was they were basically countering every little thing they were talking about with the Allen, Texas, and the whole thing with Jordan Neely. All they were doing was countering.
They did the same thing with Kyle Rittenhouse. Go ahead.
Yeah. But I'm saying countering. And it's like, meanwhile, I kept putting Sir Antonio Brown's name in there. Talk about him. You can do good by forgetting about countering because guess what? You're not going to change anybody's mind countering, regardless of anybody's right or not. Regardless of anybody's right or not, you're not going to change their mind. You're not going to change the conservative's mind. You're not going to change the liberal's mind. So you're countering. You want to know what you can do? You can do that story. You can do the Chicago cop story. You can do those stories and counter that. There's your counter, but they won't. They want to fight. Everybody wants to fight, and that's where I'm tired of the thing. Remember the Frank Reynolds we talked about, Scott?
Oh, yeah.
Get it right.
Yeah.
They're not getting it right.
Hey, listen, Jacob, if I don't ever teach you another thing in this business, at least I taught you the Frank Reynolds thing. So,
yeah. I'm saying get it right.
No, I know. I'm saying you're right. You have to get it right. I mean, it took Frank Reynolds during a – wait. You talk about Frank Reynolds during a high-octane situation with President Reagan.
Yeah.
And that's what it takes. Does it take a high-octane situation to echo the thoughts of Frank Reynolds? Get it right. And the problem is I don't think that with this expanded new media, nobody's getting it right anyways. And there's more of it not to get right.
And not even the counter. Not even the counter. It's like all the – whether a liberal or conservative, all each side wants to do is counter each other with the same story. Nobody's going to change minds, so why not counter by a different story?
Right.
That is like, but guess what? You know what that would be? That would almost probably break Twitter because that would mean no chaos.
Yeah.
And it's like, and the thing is, Twitter might need to be broken. Elon Musk might need to be broken if he was to do something like this. Or in everything like this to get to this thing and stop this chaos. We need real stories.
Yeah. And real, fair stories. Because guess what? The more days pass that Sir Antonio Brown's not being talked about, the more whoever killed him, chances are of them getting away. See, they don't think about that side neither. But a lot of them also couldn't be bothered. They couldn't give a damn, So there's also that. But I want to go on to our next topic here, and that is, and this one here actually might be semi-funny, but fans destroying property over their teams losing games. Now, we've seen our share of cities who destroyed things, looking at you, Boston, Massachusetts, who destroyed, property when they win, and even then that, can go too far because I can recall it was either 2013 or it was one of the years the Red Sox won the World Series and a girl actually got shot and killed out there. But now over losing games, I mean, plain put, and I'll keep it short. That's just adolescent, just toddler behavior. Like, oh, you don't get your way, you're gonna go and throw your chair, or you're gonna go and like stomp your feet, kick the ball, or something like that. We've all seen. YouTube clips. We've laughed at these hacks, these clowns, where their team loses the game, and I saw one time dude took his whole flat screen and just dumped it in the swimming pool, wiping them going off. Oh, now we got nothing to watch now, because your team lost. It is destructive behavior, but you know what? Also, now if it's like public property or something, okay, yeah, that's horrible. If it's your stuff, I couldn't give a damn. You're just without a TV now, idiot. But outside of that, I mean, but it also speaks a lot to just how they are as a person, who they are as a person. When they don't get their way, they throw a fit, they get loud, they cuss, they, you might punch a wall or something, and they go and destroy their property. But I actually want to start with Jordan on this one. Jordan, what are your thoughts on meatheads destroying property, their own or someone else's or the public's, when their teams lose?
I find it ridiculous. I mean, you guys know me. We are all huge sports fans. I may get on the rest, but I'm not at the point where I'm going to break something. The thing that I really hate, besides the destroying of the TVs, which I don't understand why you would go and do that, because you don't have self-control, is the jersey burning. I've seen that too. Like, why? Even on a trade, like, why are you burning the jersey? That can be a collectible, 10 years down the road. And plus, those jerseys are what, $160? I mean, I know a hockey jersey is $225, so why would you burn that? I just have never understand these knuckleheads. Yes, it's not my property. I've seen it. It really is disturbing to me that you would actually, grab your TV, you break it, or you run it over. Like, why? Over a game? If you're going to do that, don't watch sports. Sports is supposed to be a form of entertainment. Yes, it hurts when my teams lose. I love it when they win, and you guys have known that when the Avs won the Cup last year. But even when the Avs lost this year, I wasn't going to destroy a property. It's just ridiculous to me. Have more self-control. If you don't, why are you watching sports?
Exactly. I mean, and y'all know me, I'm a Texans fan, and we're not doing that hot right now. So as many games as we lose, but I still have my laptop. I still have my PlayStation. I still have my equipment, still have my television, because I don't engage in destructive behavior when Davis Mills throws an interception. Like, you know what I mean? But I want to swing it over to Jacob, and then give us your thoughts about meatheads who destroy their own property.
You don't do that kind of stuff because you were at war.
Mm-hmm.
You were at war, which means you had a responsibility to troops. You had a responsibility to something to keep your team alive. You're doing all that stuff. You were a man before your time. And those are the things. See, I'm going to give it a story here. I'm going to give this little story of how I got my sports thing and how I got it. Watched the Bears all my life, the Celtics. Dad and I watch Larry Bird also, Cubs sometimes, And you want to know what we did? I had to get home every Sunday, watch the game with the dad or something, or Celtics or whatever. And you watched it. And those are the times that the Bears won most of the games. But even in the 90s, when I was getting older, they were losing, okay? That kind of stuff. But you want to know what I got out of everything was the fact that no matter what part of the game it was, Dad was getting up and he'd get a phone ring and he was getting ready. He was the road bridge excavation contractor. So he had his own business still. Even slowed down, he had his own business. You know what I mean? And he was getting ready for the day. So you didn't yell at the TV and say, "Yay, touchdown," when he's on the phone. He's getting ready for the week. So you just did, yes, that kind of thing. Before you could yell after he's back, but that kind of deal. But after the game's over with, okay, go mow. Okay, shovel snow, whatever the season, whatever.
Yeah.
And it was, something, no matter if how horrible the team was, no matter how good the team was, no matter whether it was a win or a loss, there was nothing. There was no time to dwell. You got to get to doing something. No time to dwell on anything. I maybe had 2 minutes before I got there going to get a thing, and you don't think about it. You're working. I mean, you're snipping the bushes. You're whatever. You're doing whatever the thing was. And I thought about that. 2003 happened when the Cubs blew it. I might have been the only. I mean, my mom called me, said, "Well, how you doing?" It's like, another year. And I already knew they blew it. They blew something serious. And then they lost the Super Bowl that 2006. Mom even asked Dad if I was going to be affected. He's like, "Nah, that's not him." Yeah. And she told me that. And it's like, that's right. And the whole reason is because And I always thought myself as immature late in life, later than most people, but now I'm starting to see that I probably wasn't, that in certain ways. Mind you, there was things I kind of had mistakes on, but I give Dad that thanks on that, the way I did these things, because you want to win. Okay, you go get some money, you bet, you have a little bit of fun, but guess what? The man that I was in that house with and watched those games was a general contractor and road bridge excavation contractor getting jobs ready on Sunday. Get ready. He's getting his business ready. Am I going to destroy that TV? No. He'd kill me. He'd kill me. No. And it's like, am I going to destroy anything in the house? No. Especially when he built the house. He built our house. He died in his house. In his thing. He was in the hospital 5 days. We got him home. He died in his bar room. He built it. And he paid it off in 8 years.
Oh.
He paid off a house he built in 8 years. Yes.
Wow, that's quick.
Yes.
That is.
He did that. So the rest of our life, we didn't have anything to worry about, even if something had happened to him. He paid off. All we had to do was pay taxes. And he worked hard. His thing was working hard. These people that do this, I kept thinking I was immature. This is immature.
Yes,
I don't care if it's property. We have a
immature
problem in this company. We have a man problem in this world. There are not enough men. Male clubs of all types, anywhere I can bring, are dying because everybody is talking about, and guess what? Women are stronger and they've earned it. But men are dying. The men that we know of masculinity, because they keep saying toxic masculinity. They keep doing all this. The men, there are boys now afraid to be men. Outside of the farmers, outside of the Midwestern farmers, they're not afraid. They're still, that's why news wants to call them flyover states. That's why it wants them to, because the farmers are still there. They're still making the men, keeping the men up. The construction workers still are. But going to the big cities, you see the men now, they're the Latinos. They're the Latinos. They are everything like that. The Latinos and any kind of immigrant man, because the white men, they're screwed. Right at this point, they're in the big cities. They are the toxic masculinity. They are so afraid to be called that. Instead of ignoring it, instead of doing their thing, instead of not hurting a woman, they're just afraid to be called things because of what's called. And it's like, and guess what? Toxic masculinity is not working. Toxic masculinity is punching your TV. It is knocking holes in the walls. It is acting like a child when your team loses.
Mm-hmm.
That's what toxic masculinity is. And when the news starts telling you things, when they start telling you things about this stuff and they start saying toxic masculinity, that's never brought up, even though that's what toxic masculinity is. They keep bringing up the ones that are on oil rigs and the construction. And then all that stuff. That's not toxic masculinity. Those are people protecting their family.
Yes.
There's still plenty of masculine men out there that are just not promoted. Period.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But we promote these wimps. We promote these wimps that act like 9-year-olds. And it's like that should be ignored. And that's what I'm talking about. Men are in trouble, and that's just where that is. Those kind of men. They're still out there, but they're not promoted.
Yeah, absolutely. And to do even further than what you just said is they have fallen into the attention trope also, because they'll destroy their own property just to go viral. The Celtics lost or whatever, or the Raiders lost or something. I'm gonna destroy my TV, and then they went and they go viral. And I'll go as far as saying, if you don't pay these asshats any attention, maybe they will straighten their act. But I want to end this round this topic off with Scott and give your thoughts about immature people who like to destroy their own property because they figure, it isn't mine anyway.
First of all, how many topics you got left, or is this the last one?
This will probably be the last one because we got to get you over Sports Arena.
This will be easy then. Okay, this will be really easy for me.
Mm-hmm.
There is no way this topic would ever make the Sports Exchange, ever. You know why I say that? Because it's absolutely cotton picking stupid. Nothing against the topic, okay? I'm talking about the fans losing their minds over losing their games. I would never be caught dead promoting this. And I'll tell you why. Nothing against you guys per se. It's not worth my time. I hate fans. I take your position there, Jacob. I really do. If I can't cover a game, I'm not sitting in the stands, period. I'll stay home and I'll do what I have to do. I'll do more shows, but I won't. So when the time comes that I'm no longer covering games, you won't see me buy a ticket to be around these morons. They are. Mm-hmm. Anybody that can destroy property, I wouldn't give this topic the time of day, me personally, because it's stupid. It just is. You know, I mean, you know, how many beers have they had? How much alcohol have they consumed? Once upon a time, Jim Campbell of the Detroit Tigers shut down the bleachers because the fans got too obnoxious at Tiger Stadium. Think about it. An organization shut down the bleachers because the fans were out of control back in the 70s and 80s. Think about it. They're not worried about how much money they lost. They want to make sure it's safe, and they're sending a message to the fans. There's a certain way that you act and a certain way that you don't. If you want your drinking privileges taken away, we're not going to open up this until they eventually reopen it. So I just think the whole thing really honestly is stupid. They're losing their, it's just like, now I got to tell you a little story on the inside that as reporters, okay, you're not allowed to cheer in the press box. So you have to hope that they win because the players are a whole lot nicer when they win than they are when they lose. And going into a losing locker room is like going to a funeral.
Yeah.
If you think about it, everybody's candid. They all want to talk. But when you go in a losing locker room, you can hear a pin drop. Oh, it was. And if you lose a lot, you've been to a lot of funerals. So,
yeah, pretty much.
You know, but you know what? To summarize what I'm saying, because I know we got to get to my program here, I wouldn't give it the time of day on the Sports Exchange. It's not worth my time and voice.
Understood. Real quick before we get to the thing, the main thing I was saying is like, Scott, you work for a living, and you work. You know, you all work for all this thing. You all work for a living, everything. And I'm saying that. It's like when you are a man and you do that something, you have an understanding of what a man does. You don't do that. Every one of you understand that, you know. I mean, Jordan, you do too, don't you? Yeah, you know, we understand that, and that's my point of all of this.
Right.
And Denzel, like I said, you were at war. You're at war. There's nothing that you're going to see with a game that's going to drive you crazy or anything like that. It just means we have way too much time on our hands and we're not acting like men.
Right. It's spoiled brats that are doing it, you know? Because remember when I introduced Scott, I was like, you know, they kind of feel like, it ain't my stuff. You know, oh, Dad would just buy another one or something. You know what I'm saying? And it's like when you actually have had to, and even then, like those who had to like work to get that big screen TV and they destroy it, okay, like you're stupid, period, for destroying the stuff. But it's like you work for that, all that money, and then now you just like, okay, yeah, you're a moron, right? Yeah, you know, but if you actually value what you bought with your own hard-earned money, you wouldn't do anything like this, period. And you know, Scott, you bring up the unruly fans. Remember when the Browns fans threw bottles and stuff on the field with that Jags Browns game? Yeah. And then we've covered this coach before. In fact, I think this whole topic. When Coach Shan White had to grab the microphone and say, "You don't live in Cleveland, you live in Cincinnati."
Yeah,
you know, he had to get his own crowd in line. You know, like stop acting like idiots. It's a game. Cheer when something goes good, boo when something goes bad. Then take your ass home. It's not worth anyone leaving.
But you know what? You're right. But then you had the malice at the palace, so it doesn't matter. These fans are just insane, no matter what venue they're in. It doesn't matter. They're always going to be that way. And think about it overseas in soccer. If you think things are bad here locally, boy, they take soccer or what they call football to levels that, to me, aren't even broadcastable. How do you like that?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
they're
real passionate about that. You know, but we are actually, we are out of time here.
We'll do the other one next week. We'll do the other
yes. We'll move it to next week. But we got to get Scott over to his program. But thank everybody for tuning in to the Pundit's Pundit. Be sure you hit that like and subscribe button if you're on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us on Facebook and everything. And let's see, for Jacob Christner, Jordan Long, and Scott, I am Denzel Snipes, and we will see you all in 7 days. Now, head to the South Florida Tribune and tune into the Sports Exchange coming up in just a few minutes. Then after that, come on back over and tune in for Confidential. Later.
Later.
Later.